Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my daily market analysis and insights. So, today we're going to be covering Nvidia and earnings report there and the impact I think it can have on the market. I covered a little bit yesterday in terms of the technicals. I might cover a little bit more in terms of things where I think it can go and valuations. Then I'm going to go into the S&P 500 ideas that I have about the European markets here, especially the German, French, and UK market. Looking at these markets because I think they're becoming a little bit oversold to the indices. And then I want to discuss commodities, especially gold and oil. I think the levels are and what the plays are in the next few days and weeks. And then finally, we're going to be discussing crypto, Bitcoin, as well as a number of other cryptos and ideas that I've shared over the last few days and weeks, where I think the performance will be there and the best options for you guys to invest. So, lot to cover today. I'm going to go straight into it. I'm going to go into sharing my screen. You can get straight to the point, analyze key markets. Okay, let's share the screen. Okay, let's go straight to Nvidia and look at where we are with Nvidia in terms of the technical levels and where I think we can go. Then we'll go into the earnings and what I expect in the next few hours. So with Nvidia, covered this yesterday briefly, and we will cover it today really quickly in terms of where we are. So one of the things I've noticed with Nvidia is we are in an ascending channel. Okay, since this wedge that developed around the period of June, July, up until early October, once we got that breakout above and then back to all-time highs and so on, we are now in a ascending channel. If we're talking about levels, if we go bullish today, the level that I'm looking at is 160. Okay, so one of the things I'll be mentioning here today is the move that I'm expecting is a 7% plus or minus on this trade. And what I expect if we get plus 7% is probably the 155, 160 level. And if we get minus 7% here, we go back down to 137, 140. Okay, that's something that I'm looking at here. This is what I'm expecting. I don't think that we're going to go down, especially considering the support that price has found around the 20 moving average here and this key trend line. So very, very unlikely that we go down. If we do move up, we're probably going to find some resistance around the 158 level. In terms of earnings and valuations, with Nvidia, one of the things that you need to realize is it's a growth industry that it's in. So AI is growing and probably will move from 40 billion to around 500 billion by 2028. So I expect Nvidia to grow in the next 2 years up until 2026. And Nvidia right now has 85% of the market share for these microchips, and it's supplying most of its competitors. So when you're thinking about all of these factors, I expect Nvidia to do really well in the next few years. So what are the levels that I'm expecting long term? Long term, based on analyst reports and ratings so far, 180 is a given, probably by early next year, if we keep on performing as we are. And then moving forward, if we draw a Fibonacci level, that's the only way I can start predicting this in terms of a technical perspective. You know, there's other ways that we can predict this based on valuations and so on. But let's just grab these Fibonacci levels here and see where technically we can go with Nvidia. Okay, so if we look at Nvidia here, we're looking at 185, and then moving on from that, we're looking at 250. So that's if we get a really bullish market and we get a move that is probably around 60% on Nvidia, and overall in the market around 20 to 30% in the next 12 to 18 months, running up into 2026. Okay, and that's very likely considering all the market analysis that I've done lately, and you can go and watch my previous videos to look at the market analysis I've done and where I project growth to be. And we are about 2/3 of the way into this bull market with S&P 500 and NASDAQ. Now, going into the markets themselves, so going into the indexes and the indices, we can go into analyzing the S&P 500 really quickly. Then we'll do the NASDAQ, Russell 2000. I'll have to reiterate again here that that is where the growth potential is in the market. So if we go into S&P 500 quickly, waiting for this to set up here. So S&P 500, there's a bit of an uptick here from yesterday, again, all based on those large caps that I was looking at earlier. So if we look at large caps here, this is why we're moving in that direction. So we had Nvidia, we had Tesla, a number of other stocks that have done really well yesterday. So that's why we were moving up higher. And now we are also bouncing off the 20 EMA level, the 20 moving average level on the S&P 500, which is a good buy the dip area. And I think a lot of investors have bought here with the idea that we're going to go back up to around 6,000, 6,100. Okay, that's the key level that I'm looking at right now in terms of where we can go in the next move up. Okay, that's what I've been mentioning for the last 4 days. 5 days here on my channel. You can go and watch all the other videos based on what I've said there and where I predict price to go, but that's basically what I'm predicting. The other option is if we do get a bit of a sell-off here with Nvidia, we can probably go back down to 5,700 or 5,660. Okay, that's another level that I'm looking at here as a key support, and at these levels I think it'll be bought very, very aggressively. The NASDAQ, I'm looking at the NASDAQ here, nothing's really changed. Yesterday we saw a bit of an uptick again, off a bounce of these 20, 30, 40 EMA levels. Around the 50 was around here. And then, you know, one of the things I've discussed over and over again is this is a key resistance here at 21,000, okay, 21,200. That is key resistance historically and something to worry about, especially considering that we've been on a move upwards on the NASDAQ for a very, very long time. We could get another dip, maybe to 19,000, but then we can go into that full-on bull market that we've expected for a long time here in 2025, 2026. The Russell 2000 is where I'm looking to invest in the next few days and weeks. And I've already positioned myself in a few trades here, but I'm looking for more opportunities. After this dip, it's looking very interesting here for a move higher, especially considering that we typically get a 40 to 50% move in the markets post-election. So at the moment, we are about 2% to 5% in that move. And if we can get 40% gain here, we're going to 3,200. And that's what I'm expecting in the next 12 months with the Russell 2000. Okay. Now I want to go into the VIX. I want to go into looking at the volatility in the market. Last few days, it's been on an uptick, and that's why we've seen a drop in price. Today, we've seen it move slightly down, with fear being a bit lower than expected. And it's understandable because it's hitting these resistance areas here on the key EMAs. And I probably expect it to come back down and then move back up again at some point, but maybe not today. Let's see how Nvidia performs here with its earnings. Everything relies around Nvidia today. Okay. What I also want to cover here with the stock market is the MicroStrategy movement. And MicroStrategy is very interesting because people are investing in it because they want to gain exposure to Bitcoin. But I think and as a business, I think it's controlling around 30 to 40 billion worth of Bitcoin. It's valued at 90 billion. And the business itself is only worth around 5 to 6 billion. So you're probably paying a premium here to buy Bitcoin if you're buying MicroStrategy. It's moving now currently like an ETF, a leverage ETF, but it's not a leverage ETF. So you're running the risk here of being exposed, especially at these prices. Now, of course, it can go much, much higher, especially if Bitcoin moves to around, I think, around 120K. If Bitcoin goes around to 120K, MicroStrategy could be, or a share in MicroStrategy could be worth around 525. So if we extend this here, we're probably looking for another 16% movement on MicroStrategy. It's not my kind of trade. My kind of trade would have been around these lows here, recent lows, where it's tested multiple times as it was accumulating, as Bitcoin was consolidating as well within the channel. This would have been the trade to trade upwards and then make the difference between 150 to 450 here on this move. But essentially, you're buying Bitcoin here. So it's a 200% move when Bitcoin's moved around 40% in the same time span. But it's not a leveraged ETF. It's not worth anything beyond, I think, the Bitcoin that it holds. So you have to be very, very careful here with buying MicroStrategy at these levels at least. That's something that's been booming in the market. So that's something I wanted to cover. Now, moving to some ideas that I've generated today. Deliveroo is one of those ideas for short-term swing trade. So what I'm looking for with Deliveroo is a breakout above this area of 140, 146 to go back to recent highs, maybe even a little bit higher. Let's see how that goes. But even just with recent highs, you're getting a 1 to 2.5 risk reward ratio here, and you can make a quick 13% on this trade. You know, if you're risking 1% here, you're probably going to make about 3% on this trade. And it's a pretty nice setup, to be honest, especially considering the European markets, okay? And then I've also looked at Rank Group, okay? This is a defense stock, aerospace and defense. Seen a slight uptick here off this consolidation area. I really like the consolidation here. Double bottom, okay? Very nice, double bottom here. You can even say triple bottom here as it's ascending up higher. Also hitting around the lows of February this year after the move higher. And then if we do get a trending move, I'm expecting a 30% move here for 1 to 2.5 again. But if we get a huge trending move overall, an unexpected trending move beyond my current target, my conservative target here, we can go as high as 75% or 60% here for 1 to 5. So if you're risking 1% of your account, you're probably going to make around 2 to 3% or 5% on this trade. And typically my trades last around 14 to 21 days, 2 weeks. So you can make that 2% within 2 weeks, or you're going to lose the 1% within that 2 to 3 days. Because if the momentum doesn't kick in, you're probably going to lose relatively quickly. But you're probably going to raise here and only lose around 0.5%. So that's as you trail on the rebound there. Okay, but let's see. These are two setups I'm looking at. I did share a number of other setups for the S&P 500, for the Russell in the last few episodes, so you can go and check those out. Now, looking at the European market, I want to discuss the European market. We discussed Nvidia, we've discussed S&P 500, NASDAQ. Now I wanted to go into the European market and some alternative markets. The German index, the DAX, is still holding very strong here around this level. Okay, this is historic levels here where it's previously tested multiple times, this zone, found support previously and found resistance previously and now finding support. What I'm still expecting with this is for it to go down here to 18,300. And I think there's still some sort of issues politically in Germany, so maybe we might see that resolve relatively quickly and then the market moves higher. But from a technical perspective, my expectation is 18,200 and then we find support. But let's see. The CAC 40 French market here, top 40 companies in France. Again, I'm expecting a retest in this area, although we are kind of around the area there. So if we're looking at here, we're near that area, but I do want that final retest around this area and then the rebound, okay, for a double bottom there. It looks very, very good to me here. And I have a number of French stocks I'm following, French banking stocks such as BNP Paribas. I have a number of other energy stocks such as Total Energy. Many, many other opportunities I'll be sharing in the next few days and weeks. UK 100. So if we look at the FTSE, again, the FTSE is finding support around this area. This is why I'm looking at RU. So I'm looking at Deliveroo as a trade here. I was expecting the RSI to go a little bit lower. Seems to be finding a bit of support around this area and rebounding here. Let's see. Not many opportunities here that I like, but Deliveroo is one of them. And then finally, I want to go and look at the Chinese market here. And around this area right now, there are a number of institutions and signs of institutions accumulating. And I think the Chinese play is one of the plays that will be big for 2025. Now, it depends because with Trump coming in and tariffs kicking in, maybe it doesn't play out. So we have to be very cautious there to analyze the macroeconomic factors and the political factors. But regardless of tariffs, when we're looking at the technicals are showing that the Chinese market will do well. And I think the Chinese government will probably bring some sort of stimulus into the economy again, as it did here in September to kick off this momentum here earlier in September. Okay, so that's the possibility here is a 1 to 3 minimum with much higher levels to retest. So if we look at where we can go with the Chinese stock market, we can go back to 30,000 here. So we're around 20,000, 19.9K. We can go to around 30,000 here with the Chinese stock market. But, let's see. Let's see where we go. Personally, I think we can go easily to around 26. Okay, so that would be a move that is worth around 30%. So we could potentially see the Russell 2000 move 40%. We could see the Chinese stock market move around 30% on average, and then we could see, I think, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ move around 20% in the next 12 months. That's something that I'm watching very, very carefully in terms of timing opportunities there. And I've spoken previously in my videos that I have a few opportunities I'm looking at. Those are Neo, Lee, Baidu, Alibaba. These are opportunities I'm looking at the moment in the Chinese market. Okay. Finally, I want to go into the dollar. The dollar, yesterday I mentioned that it's getting to those interesting levels on a seasonal perspective. So when we look at election years, usually in the later weeks of the election years, we see a downtrending move in the dollar. So the dollar loses its value as the new administration comes in. And potentially that is the play here. And this is the play that I would go for if you were looking to trade Forex. I would look for a shorting opportunity against the euro and yen and the pound, and I would look to short the dollar here in the next few days and weeks. We're getting a bearish divergence as well from a technical perspective, but we probably could see an uptick here, a retest of this 107 level before we get that down, a trending move. Oil, a big one here. Oil's moving now in the right direction. And I think it may have found support here, or it could be a final retracement before it dips all the way down to 65. The level that I've been looking at and eyeing up in the last few weeks before I buy some oil stocks and energy stocks. Okay, so that's something I'm looking at here. Oil, there's huge opportunities there for us to buy some oil stocks once oil upticks, but we'll have to see how the situation changes when Trump goes into the White House. Natural gas moving up higher here. I was in a trade here, and I was mentioning in the last few days that I would look to sell on the breakout, on the break below these levels here. So around 2.6, but it seems to be ticking up higher. which is a positive. I'm up about 24% on my natural gas trade. I did trade it previously here for 19%, now 24% here on this trade. It looks very nice, long-term perspective. I think we can go all the way to 3.1 and then maybe even higher to 3.4. So huge opportunity there to make some extra profits on this, for me at least. Gold, I mentioned that gold was going to fall last week, and it did for a few days. And then now with tensions of war and missiles being launched into Russia, there are issues now with overall fear in the market. And I think investors are going into gold and silver and some secure investments. So that's what we've seen here. This is what I was expecting in terms of price action. I was expecting an uptick and then probably a downtick here. So we'll see how this reacts here. But if it breaks above, then we can potentially now go into a new trending move all the way to 2,900 or 3,000 here with gold. But my expectation is we're going to get a retest and a move back down. I just can't see it moving higher straight away. Although it did find support around the key level that I mentioned here, which was around 2,500. So there's no reason why it shouldn't. But from what I'm seeing on my technical analysis, looking at the longer time frames, looking at the levels that it's achieved, I think it might need a further dip here for institutions to really want to buy and drive this price higher. Silver, very similar situation, but slightly ticking down here a little bit, seeing resistance, I think, and reacting to it more than gold. As you can see here, silver reacting to the 20 EMA resistance and probably going to come back down here in the next few days. Let's see, or it could easily consolidate and then move back up higher. But the likelihood scenario, the probabilities, in my opinion, are we go a little bit lower, accumulate, and then go back up. That's my analysis. That's what I'm looking for. If it doesn't play out, then I won't take the trade. You know, it's just one of those things. I only take trades that play out to my strategy. Okay. And then let's cover something else. There's nothing else to really cover here other than crypto. Okay. We're going to be covering crypto. And then finally, I'll share some ideas that I have on top of the Root and the Rank group ideas that I just shared earlier. So if we go into Bitcoin seems to continue to want to go higher here. I thought that we could probably get a dip, and I'll keep on mentioning that we should be getting a dip based on the levels that we're seeing. But as we know, crypto has a mind of its own, especially Bitcoin. I also expected that there would be a consolidation or some sort of wedge. Those plays are now void here. Okay. Consolidation could still happen if we dip down lower post-market open in about an hour. The dip, I'm expecting the dip now probably to come in around 85k, and I just don't expect this second dip to happen. Okay, I don't think this second dip will happen anymore. Although I did say that we're going to get a dip, you got to remember that I am in a long trade here, and I am still holding, and I've gone from 30% on this move now to 34%, 33% in profit. So I'm happy for this trade to continue. It's just based on my analysis, I thought that we would get a dip. Fortunately, we're not getting it at the moment. And potentially we might not get it until we hit 100k here by the looks of it. Okay, so that's something to be mindful of if you are a crypto investor. We are also seeing money flow heavily into Cardano, which is a crypto that is and moves with Bitcoin. And as you can see here, we're getting at these extremely overbought areas here with Cardano. I'm up probably around 120, 130% here. I mentioned this in my Telegram group. You guys can go and follow that group for free. That's where I discuss all of my ideas and I share them before I even share them here. Okay, so Cardano, I'm up around 125% on this trade. And it's just been constantly moving higher off this wedge pattern with multiple support areas that I've mentioned for the last 3 months in my Telegram group. Okay, the link is in my description. You can go and watch. You can go and join for free. Attic is moving higher here. is one of my other trades. Slightly higher, but no real momentum. We haven't seen that serious momentum come into Matic yet, or Polygon. And Atom, very similar here. No serious momentum, but I am up around 25-30% here. So no reason to worry. Ethereum, I mentioned yesterday that with Ethereum, we saw inflows come in to Ethereum. A couple months ago and weeks ago, we saw inflows coming into Bitcoin, and then we saw it go into Ethereum, and then now we're seeing it fluctuate between different tokens. So we see it go into Cardano, sometimes we see it go into HBAR, other days we see it go into Filecoin, etc., etc. So what do I expect with the Ethereum though? With Ethereum, it's looking likely that we're going to get a wedge pattern from the price action. Okay. Now we may or may not get a wedge pattern. We may even get a bit of a dip. Okay. But my prediction was bouncing off this area here, then moving back up higher. That's exactly what's happened. So I'm going to remove this now. And then on the breakout I entered, I'm up now around 25% approximately. And now I expect a retest of this area around the 2.9K, 2.8K. The deepest that we can go is probably 2.8K, and then we go higher. We could also just go higher here straight away, just like Bitcoin. Bitcoin's just not giving up here. It's constantly being bought, and it's trending every day. With altcoins, some other altcoins I've been watching lately and traded previously, we're seeing a slight dip here with altcoins as money is flowing back into Bitcoin. Okay. So Bitcoin is taking all the profits. And if you can look at all the trades that I've taken, those ones that I'm in right now are showing momentum. The ones I was previously in are no longer showing momentum except Link. So there is obviously some signs there that I look at. And if momentum is dying out, I get out. Okay. In terms of ideas or trades I'm in, I am in a Tesla trade since I think 40. Okay. And this is going to be a big trade for me, I think, this year. And probably going into next year if the momentum of the market continues to move higher and there is buying momentum. IonQ is also a big trade for me. I've made a lot of money on this in the last few months. And I'm looking for further upside here, but we're seeing some weakness at these levels. Okay, so I did take. I was looking at a put option here on Monday, and then now we're probably going to see a bearish divergence develop, and then probably a dip to certain levels. But I'm happy here because I've already made 85%, another 85%. So in total, in the last two and a half months, I've made 240% just on IonQ. QBTS, another quantum computer. This one is showing a lot more weakness than IonQ. I am looking now probably to sell and then look for another rebuy here. I held through. I'm looking to see a rebuy or a momentum to kick in again. If it doesn't, I'll sell. I'll make my 25-26%. A 1 to 2 here, so risking a couple percent here to make a 4 or 5% here. And then it goes much higher. Olo is another trade that I'm in, showing a little bit of strength here, but I would like to see it build up that momentum again and move much, much higher. I do think that we can go all the way to $10 on this one. Let's just see where the analysts predict it will go. 870. So not too bad. I mean, we can get another 30% here. So 870. So if we go 870, 880, we can get 70% trade it. Okay. I've already hit my initial target. So I'm looking now to kind of just maintain this position and look for it to ride a little bit higher. Okay, one trade that I am still in but isn't really moving is MongoDB. This is a growth stock. I do think it will do well in the long term, and I do like the fact that it's broken out of this wedge, but we're just not seeing the momentum here, and that's something that's lacking. For me, I would happily sell here for a slight loss, probably 7%, considering I'm aiming for 30 or even more. Slight loss here, and probably around like 0.5, 0.1% of my total account. on this. I'm not risking much, but yeah, I'll be happy to sell here around 270. If it dips lower than that, I wouldn't want to hold it. If I'm being honest, it's not something I want to hold. Then looking at new ideas, I have a few ideas. Okay, I liked Dollar Tree. I mentioned it yesterday. Hasn't moved much. I think it's probably not going to move much today. Target was sold off aggressively on poor earnings. Dollar Tree probably the same here. So I'm just waiting patiently to see where we find support. And if we can find another support here, come back up, then we're probably in the game here above 68 to trade it for around 50% profit all the way up to 100 per share. Okay. And I think when we're looking at analysts, they're rating around 80. 80 is around here. But, you know, it could probably move a lot more aggressively. Target, I mentioned it yesterday, but didn't really want to trade it. I didn't like it, especially before earnings, and it just dumped aggressively here. So the trade is now void. It does not, you know, I'm not looking at it anymore. I would have looked at it above here when it started building some momentum. No momentum, not interested. In fact, I probably should have shorted it, but I didn't really want to take the risk. So I'll be looking for this to find some more support, which it probably won't for a long time. So let's go and remove that one. Align Therapeutics, I think, or Align Technologies. Yeah, not Therapeutics. Align, I'm looking above this area, 230. So at the moment, multiple times found support around this area, maybe one more time. The ideal scenario, we always look at the potential path here, and then we move. Okay, so it could be a couple months in the making of this trade, so not one to really watch right now. What else do I like? I did like Nerdy, and I'm regretting not entering. He moved very aggressively yesterday. A regret of mine that I didn't enter straight away. I sometimes like to wait and see where the price will move. Nerdy is one that I'm looking for right now, and I've been watching for a long time. You can even go to my Telegram group and see that I've mentioned Nerdy a few times. Another growth stock opportunity there. Very slow. Let's set up. Come on. There you go. So double bottom here. We had a double bottom. Really like the setup because there's a bit of a squeeze around this area. So I'll just quickly draw what I liked about it. Squeeze around this area. Let's break here. We had the double bottom on this area here. We had RSI oversold again. That comes back up, and it's moved too much for me to look at it now without seeing a dip. So in reality, with Nerdy, if you're looking to trade it, I would want a retest of this zone here. Okay, so $1.1, 108, a retest of that zone, and then for a move back up higher here for around 80% for 1 to 2, maybe even better 1 to 4. Okay, because I think we could probably tighten the stop loss there. We don't have to keep it that wide. Okay, yeah, so 1 to 4, 1 to 5, yeah, for sure. That's the trade. Let's see if it does come back down. If it does come back down and does a retest, it would be perfect. I would probably look to re-enter or enter a Nerdy here when it dips down. But that's it. That's it for me for today. Until tomorrow, we'll speak about more ideas and